to be the clerk.
Nominate you.
I'll do it.
We'll figure it out. At
I
7
don't
p.m.,
care.
we'll open the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance at 7 p.m.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Both our clerk and treasurer are expected to be here, but both are expected to be a little late. So in the interim,
I nominate Trustee Bills as temporary clerk.
Support.
a motion by Smith, support by Brown to nominate Trustee Bills as temporary clerk until ours arrives. Are you okay with serving?
Yes,
Any other
sir.
nominations? Any discussion? All in favor of Trustee Bills being temporary clerk, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you for serving. Motion passes unanimously. Trustee Bills, would you please do a roll call of the board?
Trustee Thering,
Here.
manager, Supervisor Milky,
Yes, here.
Trustee Smith,
Here.
Trustee Brown,
Here.
Trustee Bill's here, and Cody and Bryce are gonna be late. Excused.
Thank you. We have an agenda in front of us. It's actually a fairly packed one. So I'll do my best to move us along tonight.
Motion
Thank
to
you.
approve. Support.
Motion by Smith, support by Brown. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion to pass the agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Agenda passes unanimously. That brings us to presentations. Commissioner Engler.
I'm gonna bring something brand new today.
Ooh.
I got a prop, so today we were out at north of town at the DTE solar panel, so we had the ground opening. It's 830 acres, 227 panels, so.
How many
can't-
acres? I'm sorry.
830.
Holy cow.
When they get done with it, so. Out in an area, there's really not any houses out there, kind of in between the woods, so it's one of the ones that I think will work well. Revenues, first year revenues will bring about 700,000 to the county. Of course, that's depreciated every year coming back, so. I know you got a long agenda, so I'll make everything good. Mr. Smith was at our meeting the other day, and I was trying to Zoom on there, but didn't work out so well. We kept getting a lot of feedback, but I was on vacation, so. One of the things we discussed, and I can bring it up, that was on the hats. Big discussion. As I've talked before, we have such a, once we get past the mandated services, very little money, less than 300,000 to spread around everybody else. We're shifting money, but Joe Barber was there. He's on the hats board, and he came out of a compromise. We usually give them 175,000. Our budget, we found 100,000, and he said, "Well, can you give us 155?" And we said, "We're going to look into some ARPA funds." The thing about hats is it's one of those things that just makes sense because they actually spend $2 every dollar we spend. If you look at Gratiot County, they're spending 300 some. Clare County is actually spending 400 some thousand on their animal control. So it's such a good deal. It'd be foolish to have a volunteer to try to do it. We're still mandated to do some of that. So as of this morning, we did find the money. And that it's going to be at the still reduced, but it's increased from the 100,000. So with that, I will take questions. I know I'm missing something else. You guys has. Oh, yes. Go ahead.
Does that mean the pet?
I just remembered it. Yeah, it's been a long day already. I just want to thank the Union Township because they've allowed us to use this building. Mr. Stu Dreyer here has been on our committee for the ad hoc committee to run the recycling. We formally ended that committee, so we're going into the next phase, and we appreciate the work, and we're not going to let you go away. We're still got a lot of, we're working on funding and some of the other stuff, but we do appreciate you allowing us to use this nice facility. So I wanted to thank the board personally for allowing us to come here and have those meetings. So, and now I'll take a question.
Does that mean that the animal adoption fees will go up, or? How are they gonna bridge that gap?
They're gonna try to keep all their costs the same. I said it's a little bit personal for me because living on River Road, which is a very busy road, and have a farm right there, we seem to be a place when people want to
Oh.
drop off cats. So we spent a lot of time getting the females fixed, and but like, you know, we're up to like 20 some cats around there right now. So.
Jesus,
Outdoor cats. I'm allergic.
and
so.
0 mice.
Right.
Well, there's only a couple good mousers. The rest of them are freeloaders. So, anyways, any questions? I know you got a long meeting, so I will not take any more of that. But again, I just want to thank for all the support and for for me and also for the committee that we're trying to do. So,
Congrats on the Murph
Yes.
advancing,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
we knew it would, so exciting.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item 7, public comment. Public comment is restricted to 3 minutes regarding items on this agenda. If you choose to address the public, please state your name and address for the record.
I have no one online.
Hello, I am Tim Odekirk. I live in the city of Mount Pleasant at 1338 Toma Drive. I am running for the Michigan House of Representatives to be a stronger voice for our community and for the 92nd District. The 92nd District is all the townships, communities, cities, and citizens within Isabella County, and then 5 townships in Gratiot County. Pretty much that St. Louis, Alma, down to the city limits of Ithaca. So as you drive down 127, it's pretty much everything you see on both sides of the expressway. I have been in this community for most of my life. I grew up here. I graduated from Mount Pleasant Public Schools, Central Michigan University. I came back here after getting a law degree on the East Coast and raised my family here. I have been on the Chippewa Watershed Conservancy Board for 21 years. I'm no longer on the board, but I still am on committees with that organization. I've also been on the Mount Pleasant Public School Board of Education for 16 years, most of those years as board president. I do have some term left on that position there. I've also am the co-founder of the Mount Pleasant Public School Education Foundation. So I helped create that about 6, 7, 8 time flies years ago. In all of those roles, I've learned how to listen to the community, the entire community. I've learned how to listen to where their issues are, ask questions, learn facts, and then make decisions to help things move forward in a way that we feel as a community is the best direction to go for whatever that group is. I've had a lot of practice doing that, especially being on the school board for as long as I've been on the school board. Everyone is quite passionate about their children, so it's very important that you learn how to listen to everyone and truly understand where their issues are and how they can align with what the district can and cannot do. Not to say that every decision has been perfect, but we recognize that, and I know how to go and review and make sure that we correct those decisions if they're not correct. I am very excited by the opportunity to be a stronger voice in the state legislature for this community. I have been visiting all the townships, and I've been learning a lot about where the issues are and what's going on in our communities. I do have some expertise, and I've been involved in many of these areas, obviously with education and habitat and water and infrastructure that I've had in the past. But more importantly, I want to use the skills that I've learned to help get some change to occur. I am very interested in doing, modifying some laws that we've had on the books for a very long time. For example, the tax structure from 1994, when we passed that, and the way that municipalities and townships are being funded from the state, we need to readdress that. There are some other issues that people have brought to my attention that we need to work on. And as you probably know, infrastructure is a very big issue in our community, especially if you live more in the western parts of the county with the sewer systems and the E. coli and the water quality that's going there. The Pine River is having significant environmental issues right now with the exact same issues as the Chippewa River in our western county. So there's a lot of needs that need to occur and things that need to happen, and I'd like to be that strong voice to do that. My wife works for Gracia Isabella RESD and the early childhood 0 to 3-year-old 4-year-old programming. So I've learned a lot in that space also. So mental health has been a big issue that has been brought to my attention, and as has elderly health and mental health, especially out in the counties. So wrapping things up, I am very excited by the opportunity to run. I've been very energized when I go and visit our communities and learn what's going on. There's some things that really need to be happening, and I feel that I'm the person that can do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ordekert.
I'm going to pass these out for more information.
Thank you. Thank you.
What high school class were you in?
81.
Okay.
Still no one in remotely?
No.
Seeing no one else coming forward, we'll close public comment at 7:11 p.m. That brings us to report boards and comments. Item 9 on the agenda. We still have one opening on Planning Commission. I got a report from Trustee Therian that our newest Planning Commissioner had a good first meeting, which was nice to hear. And I believe we have an opening on the Board of Review and an alternate on the Board of Review, as well as an alternate on the ZBA, so just heads up. With that, I'll be happy to hand the floor to our Community and Economic Development Director, Mr. Nanny.
Thank you. Just a report on our Economic Development Authority Board meeting. They met on the 17th. They had a fairly busy agenda for them as well. The first item on their list, they had contracted with Jeffrey Graber from Graber Associates, which is an irrigation design contractor or design professional, to ask him to provide them with some advice and answer some questions about potentially reinstalling the irrigation along the stretch of M20 East Pickard Road where the construction took it out last year. He came to that meeting on the 17th, presented a report. It was a very good discussion. In the end, the EDA board elected to ask him to submit a proposal to actually do the design work. They were pleased with what he shared with them. And so at this point, Mr. Graber is putting together a proposal for the EDA board to take a look at. That would simply be for, as I said, doing the design elements for the project. The second item on their list was the item on your list, which was to consider a participation agreement with you, with Board of Trustees, for to assist with funding for the water main looping project that would go from East Pickard Road down Simberton Road to Broadway Road in the East EDA district. This is a project that's been on the EDA board's radar for some time. It's been part of their project list for a number of years. It was included as part of the grant element that we received the $10 million plus grant award for. But as you know, the costs for that project came in high, and so the EDA board was asked to consider participating to a level of $500,000 in that, and they were very happy. It was a very happy discussion to support that project and see that work done. So they did approve that participation. And then the last item on their list, which is also on your agenda, which was looking at the budget amendment number 1 for the 2024 fiscal year. They did review that and took action to approve it and recommended it to you as well for final action. So as I said, overall it was a busy agenda and added to your agenda. The Planning Commission also met on the 17th. I absolutely echo the comments that made already about our new Planning Commissioner, Philip Brown. He is an excellent addition to the commission. He had hit the ground running, really did. He had great questions and comments, and he was very prepared. We've been very fortunate because Tom Over, who's been now with us for several meetings, is also a new member and has been equally a great addition to the commission. Planning Commission had a busy agenda as well. The first item on their list was a public hearing on some additional zoning ordinance amendments. You have one set of amendments they looked at, your agenda tonight. The other item that had come up was to look at amending the site plan review section of the ordinance, primarily, to look at allowing some final site plans to be administratively approved. What it would be in cases where, what the state law and our zoning ordinance say, in cases where a site plan is found to comply with all applicable zoning ordinance requirements, it must be approved. That's the language of both elements. And so what was proposed and what they held a hearing on was to amend our site plan section so that if staff finds in our review of a final site plan that it does fully comply with all applicable ordinance requirements, that at that point then the final site plan could be administratively approved. It would not need to go to the planning commission for essentially what would be a rubber stamp action to approve it. So that was the benefit of that. It could save a month. It could certainly save several weeks in the development approval time period for those projects that comply. And the reason it came up is we've had under the current ordinance and under the process we have now, we're finding more and more that the final site plans are coming in completely ready, and so there's less for the planning commission to discuss, and so it's really simply to help clear some of their agenda by allowing these projects that do follow ordinance and do a great job to move forward quickly. This amendment will also amend our non-conforming site section. This is the section that allows us to work with older sites where they're making improvements to an older site, an addition or something like that. That site may have been built many years ago. It doesn't fully comply to our current site development standards. It allows us through the minor site plan process, which is an administrative approval. The amendment would allow our zoning administrator to be able to apply that non-conforming site section, which basically says that the zoning administrator can approve a minor site plan that does not bring everything up to the current standards, but focuses on certain key priorities that non-conforming site section identifies, public safety being the first one. And then there's kind of a menu of some other items that can be that the applicant can choose from to make improvements on. So they did hold the hearing, and they did make a recommendation for adoption of that additional amendment. Right now, it's in the hands of the county planning commission. They'll be looking at it, I believe tomorrow, actually. No, I'm sorry. No, I apologize. No, not for Thursday. Second Thursday. So it's next month, second Thursday. So you'll be seeing it towards the end of next month. The other items on their agenda, very much you'll appreciate. The Plan Commission did approve the preliminary site plan for the Isabella County Material Recovery Facility expansion. They had good discussion on that and learned a great deal about the process. They asked some good questions about what was proposed, but they did approve it. And then they also took a look at an issue over in Isabella Road. This came up at our last meeting during public comment. We had a family that has been, it's been an ordinance enforcement issue. They have chickens and ducks and I don't recall what else, several kinds of birds, I think turkeys, at their home in Isabella Road. It's a small lot, less than an acre. It happens to be zoned industrial. It's across the street, across Isabella Road from the Delfield plant. And it's part of the industrial district. So there's no option for these animals to be in the yard. So the ordinance enforcement process involved, they came in to ask the Planning Commission to consider rezoning that site to the R1 district, which is rural residential. The Planning Commission actually put on the agenda for their September meeting to look at it. They did have an extensive discussion on the topic. Interestingly enough, the master plan actually identifies this property or designates it for rural buffer. So R1 district is actually more appropriate than the industrial district for the site. It's surrounded two sides by R1 district. That was property that was rezoned about 9 years ago now. In the end, the Plan Commission actually did decide to initiate a rezoning of that lot. So that will be on their October agenda for a hearing. That takes care of all the items I had on my list. I'm happy to answer any question you may have.
I just had a quick question. Has anybody reached out from either Renaissance or Maury Courts / CRC about access? You know how Maury Courts has the sign right there in Isabella, so they kind of have that little slug of land. They were talking about maybe putting in a road that would go behind Renaissance, kind of tie in with the Maury Courts. That way it can feed out at the light. Has anybody approached you on that one yet?
This has actually come up a couple of times, and now it's a couple of years ago, I believe. We had a meeting with the director at the Renaissance Academy. I believe Kim Rice was there, actually, as a parent, child at the Academy. And at that time, we actually talked about that as a beneficial element, for both the Renaissance Academy and Maury Courts. The Renaissance Academy was not interested at that time in pursuing anything.
Oh, okay.
Now, that was then, and I believe Peter Galladay from our office received a call from a gentleman asking about that, but he was not affiliated with either.
I just kind of heard some things out in the community that may be coming back, where they may want to relook at doing that because of the safety concern and how backed up traffic gets on, and especially where you got the light and the designated left turns at all that intersection. It's a much safer intersection now, so just it may be coming in front of you in the near future.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly it'd be a great condition, and the Isabella Sportsplex at any time could propose that. It'd be a very simple change. Simple on a plan, not simple to construct, but simple on a plan to add that in.
And so if they reach out, I'll make sure that they get a hold of you immediately and just say, it looks promising.
Yeah, we'd be happy to sit down with anybody.
Thank you.
about that.
I'm good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Item 9D on our agenda, board member reports. Trustee Therian?
Really, the only thing I'm just going to add to Mr. Nanny's comments were we appointed a new vice chair, Commissioner Shingles, and we appointed Commissioner McDonald as our representative to the Zoning Board of Appeals. So that's it. He let me say a little something tonight. So. I appreciate that.
That's good news. Clerk Cody? Trustee Brown?
No report tonight.
Trustee Bills?
We all attended the meeting this morning, intergovernmental liaison meeting, and it was a good meeting. A couple of highlights. I'll do a few things, and you guys can do the rest. But the main thing I was concerned about was the pathway up to the Hannah Spark Park or the Mission Creek, and what the city manager said, Aaron DeScent said, was that the planning stages or the engineering stages were a little behind schedule, but it should be done next year, or started next year anyway. And they had that ribbon cutting today, as Commissioner said, and the tribe finished, they have finished it, right? The permanent housing 16-plex for the transition of peoples that were maybe incarcerated or had other life issues that needed some temporary transitional housing. So that's really exciting. And I'll leave it at that. And then you guys can do the rest.
Trustee Smith?
With the county, there was a long meeting, lots of notes taken. I'm not going to go over everything. Obviously, what Commissioner Engler had said, they did work out the HATS funding. That was a topic. They also have an agreement again with Miklos Ferber, again to help with the engineering and assistance on the new remodeled administration building. So that's good. He also helped on the jail project, so it's good to have some of his expertise doing that as a free for the county, which is good. And just budget adjustments, and then 2% request conversations and approvals, and other than that, just a lot of budgetary stuff. So
Great. So as Trustee Bills mentioned, she and I and Trustee Smith all went to the intergovernmental meeting this morning. I'll just pick up on a couple things that you didn't already cover. One was, we did have some discussion on the CMU Health College. It's probably not the right terminology, but, them moving third-year students and off campus to Saginaw. So there's just some discussions on what that meant to the community. The PEAK program, the city did indicate they had found some additional funding, so they're thinking they'll save about $230,000 a year, which allows them to, I believe, is going to be able to keep the costs kind of where they have been for families, because without keeping that cost down, that excludes a lot of families. So I was glad to hear that. They did mention the city town center. Lights are all in, electricity's there now. I think the only thing it sounded like they had not done, and correct me if it's wrong, is the restrooms, but they should be done next month-ish, right?
Yeah.
10/11 was estimated delivery of the equipment this time.
On the sheriff's complex, they're at about 37% of contingency spent so far, so that's, I think, good news for the county, because they're getting closer to wrapping that up. Nicole Frost, the administrator, did encourage, and she knows Township's been invited on a tour, but she encouraged again, if you want to see it, we just have to ask. And then a lot of discussion on the MRF. I'm just excited about that. So,
Yeah, the Soaring Eagle, or I'm Soaring Eagle, the Saginaw Chippewa tribe is giving some of their grant money to it, so that's cool.
yeah, it's just a lot of good people making a lot of good stuff happen there. So
What, I just had one other thing.
sure,
I didn't know if you were finished.
I am now.
Yeah, so they were talking about the long-term Mission Road, Mission Street look for the future in their, what is it, the 2050 plan that they had? Anyway, they have the consultants for that working to get resident feedback. They'll be at the farmers market from 9 to 11 on this Thursday, and at Bovee Auditorium from 12 to 2 to get feedback. And so I encourage anybody to show up and discuss with them if you have any opinions on Mission Street.
And I also think at the city hall at 5:30 to 7:30.
Okay, I missed that one,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, I missed that one too.
I just couldn't write fast enough. Sorry.
I do have.
Quick, Cody.
I have a couple comments.
Okay. I gave you the opportunity before, but we'll
Yeah,
give you
well-
two. Okay.
I thought about it. I'm getting tired, so.
Yeah.
The public accuracy testing for the November election is Tuesday at 10:30, this coming Tuesday. That's the first. And then we'll have the election commission meeting. It is this coming up Tuesday, yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
Election commission meeting, that is at 10:15 on Tuesday as well. And the absentee ballots are starting to go out, so keep an eye out for them,
yay.
right?
Busy time.
Yeah.
We all good now? All right, moving on. Consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Support.
Motion by Bill, support by Trustee Smith. I did notice, it looked like Trustee Smith had warrants.
Yes, I did, and everything looks good.
I just want to point out briefly, if you got a chance to look through that Consumers Energy streetlight resolution for the streetlight on Lincoln and Broomfield. $100. I just got to lift that up.
Yeah, man.
They haven't raised the price in how many years?
No, they are going to make us pay for electricity on that
Yeah.
Well,
LED
yeah.
on that LED light, but nonetheless, yeah, what a deal, huh?
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
So, we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Consent agenda passes unanimously. That brings us to new business. Look at all of this stuff tonight. Wow. To kick off, on 11A on our agenda, we have an introduction and first reading of the updated zoning ordinance that the Planning Commission has been working on. This is regarding signs. Mr. Stuhldreher, would you like to introduce this?
Thank you, and we are asking the Board of Trustees to hold a first reading and introduction for this proposed zoning ordinance text amendment. P as in Peter, T as in Tom, X as in X-ray, T as in text, 24-1. This has to do with the sign portion of the zoning ordinance. There's a report on page 31 of your agenda packet, and, oh, by the way, good evening, everybody, it's good to see you. The sign regulation section of the zoning code, which is the current zoning code, which is section 11. This was put into place when the zoning code was approved most recently in 2020, and that pretty much fundamentally, comprehensively changed the zoning or the sign section from the 1991, at the time was then the then current ordinance. Staff has been working with that ordinance for the last 3 to 4 years, and as is often the case, has identified some challenges and some conflicts within other parts of the code as they've been working with the sign section of the zoning code. And so they thought it was time to address that. So hence this staff-initiated text amendment to the sign section of the current zoning code. The administration, a couple things have been noted that it's pretty difficult because the standards are not very flexible if you want to modernize or update older signs, which many times may be now non-conforming. And so that was a issue that they thought we should address in the updated ordinance. The regulations currently at times conflict with other parts of the zoning code and maybe even within the sign code section itself. So I just want to again repeat that the township staff has initiated this change. The summary of the amendments, they're on in your report, but I'll just quickly run through them. We feel that they're adding flexibility to create additional signable area on building-mounted signage, which would help the business owners by providing that flexibility. The new code expands options for allowable alterations to existing non-conforming signs, which we think will help business owners also and help the township as they try to modernize and the signage look of around town. Some changes, primarily we think streamlining the regulations and expanding in some cases the allowance for temporary signs, which is pretty strict under the current ordinance. And then as it relates to freestanding ground signs, again adding some additional flexibility, which is all designed to help business owners create the signage they want within a framework that is a little bit more expansive than in the current code, but yet we feel it's a nice balance between what sometimes may be thought of as competing interests. Also have done some work on the standards for LED and digital signage. We have one down here on M20. Planning Commission, as was indicated, considered these changes at their last, I'm not sure if it was their August or July meeting, but in the recent past, they recommended unanimously approval. They recommended to the Board of Trustees that the Board of Trustees approve the amendment, and that vote was unanimous. I'd be happy to answer any questions anybody may have on this item.
I'll make the motion if that's okay.
I've got a few questions.
Okay, sorry, I didn't see you.
I mean, but either way,
If the
you
board's
can make a
okay,
motion and
we
then
can
I
do
can.
motion, and then as long as we're okay, including our manager for access to questions during debate.
I mean, I got like 6 questions, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a number as well, but
I'm
if you'd like to,
I'm-
we'll use that to open debate.
All right.
I'm
I have-
fine.
I move to introduce and conduct a first reading for the proposed PTXT 24-01 amendments to this section 11 signs and section 2.2 definitions of the zoning ordinance number 20-06 for the purposes of establishing more flexible standards and updated requirements for various types of signs and resolving regulatory conflicts within the current ordinance as recommended by the Planning Commission.
Support.
A motion by Bills, support by Smith. Questions? Clerk Cody, you said you had like 6?
Yeah.
Are you ready?
I'm trying to find the pages real quick. I have like the number, but I don't have the page. So it's on page 37 and 11.03. It is B, construction signs. It says max of 1 sign per road frontage. So what if you're doing a big, like you have a big frontal? I mean, you know, you're doing a big project like Walmart or whatever. I mean, 1 sign on that whole big piece is just not, I don't think, good enough. I mean, you should have 1 on each end or be able to do like the frontage size-wise or, 1 I don't think is good for something like that.
Why?
Because you can't see it from both ends. It's huge, you know, and you got construction people coming in and, you know, you got 1 on this end, 1 on this end. They don't know where to turn in. They're getting lost. And I'm just saying,
Well, wouldn't there also be directional signs for the public?
I don't know. It says 1 sign.
Well, no, I mean, that's, okay, yep.
You know.
Mr. Manny.
So that's actually in addition to item C there, other temporary signs. So that they could actually have more than 1 temporary sign there. One of them could be this construction sign, but also they could have other additional signs up to the square footage that's allowed there based on the zoning district. So yes, they could have more than 1. They just-
Okay, that was the question. One of them. Does somebody else want a question or you want me to keep going?
If you're prepared, go ahead.
Okay, so 11.06, I don't know what page, hold on. No, yep, oh, page 40. Maybe it's not page 40, I don't know.
11.06 is on 40.
Yeah, but I'm looking at the pylon signs. I couldn't find the def-
That is on 41.
okay,
The pylon signs prohibited,
Top of the page.
top of the page.
okay, I'm missing a page.
So it is
It's all mixed
11:06.
up. So when I was going through this, it got all mixed up. So the pylon signs, I have a question on it. I've not seen a definition. So the definition, I couldn't find it like in the back or anything, so I Googled it because I didn't know what a pylon sign was. So I Googled that, and then when I Googled it, it kind of looked like a ground sign. So when it said no, I mean, if you look at it through Google, so not having the definition, it's confusing to me. Because, like I said, I didn't know what it was, so.
So yeah, I don't disagree with you on that. The term is really defined in that paragraph there under C. It actually declares what a pylon sign is, but we certainly can add a definition to make it clear.
Like, so it's on the definition page of it. And then what else did I get?
Can I follow up on that real quick as long as
Yeah.
we're here? So Clerk Cody had mentioned this question to me, and I said, yeah, I didn't look in the definitions for it because I had an assumption in my mind what a pylon was. And I agree, it kind of says it. When I looked it up, I DuckDuckGo'd it rather than Google it. But when I looked it up, the definition I was given was generally taller signs that are propped up or erected on a single pole or 2 poles. And as I looked through images of those, it's a wide variety of signs. So I don't know if, and Clerk Cody's just following up on this, if it needs to. This is more broad, I think, this definition in that first paragraph, and than maybe that I saw. Does that make sense? Thanks.
Yeah, that's
Just a
kind of what
comment.
I was, thanks. So what else do I got? Hold on one more second. Prohibited signs. Why did I want to talk about that? Number 6. I don't even know. I'm sorry. Hold on. Or somebody else can go if they got a question first.
Was it on, you said prohibited?
Yeah, but I
had
don't
one on
remember
that,
what I had.
If you're okay with me jumping in just
Yeah,
on
go
that
ahead.
section.
think
So this is
text.
probably me not reading things properly, but when I got to prohibited signs, again, this is page 42 of the packet, 11.08. Begins by saying that the following types of signs are prohibited in all districts. And as I'm reading through this, and I'll just pick on one of them, item 6, roof signs. I'm like, okay, I can see roof signs being prohibited. But then as you go through that list, you see pylon signs. And so I was confused, well, why are we restricting pylon signs when we obviously are allowing them? And that's how I interpreted this. And so I was sure I was misinterpreting it, so I'd be happy to hear your explanation.
Well, actually, the pylon sign language earlier was essentially, we're saying it twice, is what we're saying and doing. The reason it's on page 41 with the reasons for it below, because that's what it says. Item C there at the top of 41 says pylon signs prohibited. And then it says the reasons why they're prohibited.
Yeah, I guess, okay.
And the reason why that we chose that format, and you see it again with the billboard signs, say new billboard signs are prohibited, is that those are the two elements most likely to create potential legal conflict, because there are some businesses that want to be visible for miles. They don't need to be, but they want to be. And so having the why there, and the strong why, is helpful to protect the township from that challenge. It just happens to be duplicated here again.
Okay, so the intent here in the prohibited is, and this is where I got confused between the definition that I thought I looked up versus what section C says. So as I read section C and use that as a definition, that makes more sense. But I was still thinking pylon signs as being broader than that, just because of what I had looked up in my own reading. Does that make sense why I was confused, at least? Okay, thank you. Was that related to your prohibited?
I think so. I think that was my prohibited. I don't know. I put my notes on a sticky and then I don't know. Okay, so the other thing I had was ground signs. It's on page 40. It says the max feet is 10 feet. And the one thing I'm thinking of is a gas station. When I'm driving down the road, I'm looking for a gas station. I don't think 10 feet is high enough to see from way over here and be like, man, I need a gas station. Where is one? So I don't think 10 feet's high enough for like a gas station or something like that.
Yeah, it is.
I don't think it is.
What
When you
is the
got
height?
like the mall signs.
What
ones
is the
with
height of the
multiple
one at
signs.
the Dunkin' Donuts? Is that's
That's, yeah, it's a ground sign.
It's
It's
a
about
ground low
8 or 9
profile.
feet high.
Oh, is that
That's
8
all
feet?
it is?
Yeah.
Boy,
No way.
boy.
so
Wow.
that's
'Cause
that's
I'm
a
like
low sign
picturing
too.
10
So
feet.
that,
I'm like, that's
that
not
fits
very
in
high.
with the current.
They really look nice.
But
That
but it's
really
up
looks
to
nice.
40 square feet on top of the 10 feet.
What, no.
What?
10 feet
Oh,
is the maximum height.
Maximum height
Yeah.
of the whole.
So
But that sign is actually 10 feet.
It's actually
High.
less than that. I mean.
Yeah.
It's,
Wow.
So
Okay. Well, I'm just picturing it. I'm like, man, that's not very tall.
There is, if you look at that table, the bottom half of page 40, that permitted modifiers, that section does create opportunities for additional height based on certain circumstances. So if the sign is in certain locations, or, I mean, there's changes based on zoning district, there are changes based on road right-of-way width or speed, that can add, some cases subtract from the height, but in some cases add. So, largely certainly on M20, for example, on a part of M20, it's going to be allowed to be taller than 10 feet because that's a wide right-of-way. So having a little additional height is important. They also get a little additional sign area for being on that road, so the sign is visible at those speeds.
But there's also additional height so it's visible from the expressway too. If you're so many 100 feet from the expressway, correct?
There's no language about the expressway.
There is no in there. So like not the Meyer, but the McDonald's, that extra tall sign.
Those are all I believe were approved as part of variances long
Okay.
ago.
So okay.
Even
So
the
they're
old
really-
even our old ordinance didn't allow those signs.
Okay.
Huh.
Even, the Union Commons sign, talking about down there by Walmart, and with that all that was approved with variances at various times.
Okay.
So the pylon sign, that's considered like one of those mall signs, like with the multiple things on it?
Right.
Is that?
Right.
So we can't have that if we get a mall or something? I mean, but them are what you looking for. I'm not gonna pull in that mall unless I see the signs and see which store I'm going to. Like, I will not pull in. I mean, it's
So
crazy
there-
getting back out, is just what I'm saying.
One of the, there is provision in here to add to the size of the sign, at the bottom of this table, modifiers. Last one is shopping center. And it does have an allowance for adding, it doesn't change the height, but it does change the sign area that's allowed for these large multi-tenant facilities.
So that's a 10-foot ground sign, not a pylon?
Again, it could still get a little bit taller than that, depending on where it's at.
Okay.
But one thing to keep in mind is that the height of the sign really doesn't actually help you very much. Certainly, it helps McDonald's be seen from 2 miles away down 127. But there's also plenty of signage that MDOT provides that allows you to know McDonald's is at this exit. So those very tall signs are simply not useful anymore. There are other means to understand that they're there. In our local area, those tall signs may actually make it harder to find. I mentioned Union Commons. I've mentioned that Union Commons sign that's out there at Encore Boulevard and Bluegrass to people before. It said, oh yeah, you can just turn right there, just look for the Union Commons sign. People don't see it. It's actually too tall there, because people now are expecting to find the sign down lower. And so the sign is actually too far up in the air for people, for drivers to notice it, even though it's a very
I
tall
look
sign.
up for them, though. I mean, that's me.
Yep.
Because, I mean, you got a semi in front of you, you can't see. So you gotta wait, and then you're right up on it, and you got the drivers here, they're just gonna slam on the brakes and turn. I'm just talking about around here. That's how it happens. But if they're looking up, they got it. We're good. Right?
Slam on the brakes and turn.
That's what they do, you can't see. Like, I'm just saying, that's how people drive around here. They're like, oh no, it's right here, stop. If they don't see it coming. Hey, I'm trying to give a good example
No, I get it.
of why I think that's
Did you have your question answered?
not really.
Well, you're on, so.
No, I'm good.
So the old mall signs must have been approved with a variance.
Yeah, but did
Yeah.
you read the old ordinance, though? That's kind of, that's why it's being updated or redone. I mean, I did, I read through it, and it was kind of, well,
I think this is the third iteration in just like 8, 9 years, this proposal. Because it was 20, and then I was on the sign committee through the planning commission sometime around, I'm gonna just guess here, 14 maybe? And that was a major step from what we had prior to that.
That's the first time we introduced the monument signs and stuff
Yes,
like that. That
right.
big issue. That was.
And that was a lot of work. I learned more about signs than I ever wanted to know.
No complaints on it either, was there?
No. Did you have others than, did you get through your 6?
the temporary sign thing. Are people gonna get confused to if a temporary sign is a political sign? Or can you write in there, not, you know,
That
I'm
is a
saying, because it's
great
not going,
question.
you know what I mean?
That's a great question. Obviously, it's a great time of year to ask that question. We cannot regulate signs by content. And although the current ordinance is actually improved from past iterations on that, it still actually has some content-based regulation in it. It still calls out political signs, for example. The problem is by calling it a political sign, you're regulating the content of the sign.
Yeah.
So what our ordinance does is simply say temporary signs, and it regulates the total square footage of temporary signs. It doesn't regulate the number. You can have, let's say you're an area that allows 32 square feet of temporary signage. You could have 32 1-square-foot signs. That's fine. Or you could have one 32 square foot sign or any iteration between. It also regulates the height and the location, how far from road right of way, from property lines. And it does not talk at all about content. Certainly, we get questions, especially this time of year, and we simply let people know what those requirements are, and there's no permit required for them, so it's as long as they are fit within those parameters of height, area, and location, they're fine.
I seen it said that it can't obstruct the view for vehicles or whatever. I don't know, it said something like that in there.
And typically
But
for temporary signs, the key thing, and I will tell you, just from an enforcement perspective, especially in the campaign season, all we're looking at is to make sure things are safe. So
Yeah.
if a sign is in a place that's unsafe, we're going to let the sign owner know or the property owner know and ask them to move it. But other than that, the season will end. And in our ordinance, it actually reflects that. It talks about, we don't even talk about how long a sign can be displayed. We simply say that it has to be removed within so many days after the event or activity is completed.
Yeah, I liked how it was put,
Can I piggyback on that too?
yeah.
Just because one of my questions was directly related to this. So in the temporary signs, let me just preface this a little bit. So I mentioned I worked on the sign committee years ago, and so that tainted my view of all of this as I'm going through it. So I was remembering those conversations that we went through. And one was, in the case of temporary signs, should it be counted as the total into the total square footage that's allowed on a property? And, I mean, we had a lot of discussion on that. So if you're allowed 120 square feet on this particular development, then if you put up a political sign that's 20 feet, do you have to take 20 feet down somewhere else? And what I saw in here is that's not the case. The temporary signs do not apply to that.
That is correct, yes.
So
Yes.
they're completely separated, in other words.
Yes,
right?
each type of sign has its standards that apply to it, yes.
So in the case of, I guess I'm just going to follow up since I had this question already. So in the case of temporary signs, one of the things that bothers me, I guess, just as a citizen, is you see those pole flag ones that stand up. One, I wondered if many of them are higher than, I think it was 8 feet, that's here, that I see, seem very high.
I would say this, that most of them are around 8 feet, if they might be a little over, but it's less than, it's maybe a foot.
Right.
I've seen some that have gotten up to 9 feet, but.
Well, I already learned that the monument down there is less than 10, and I didn't know that. I thought it was bigger. It looks bigger. So my only fear with temporary, because there's no limit, is there is that square footage limit, though. So you can't just put up 20 of these and clutter for indefinitely, because sometimes they're not related to an event, because I saw the 5 days after. It may just be coffee here or something
Beer.
like that, right?
Maybe.
Right.
Cigarettes, yeah.
And I think, the goal of the township, at least my goal would be to make sure we assign ordinance that encourages communication for businesses, residents, et cetera, but isn't cluttery. Right? And is safe. So in those cases, the temporary is really the restricting tool there is that square footage, correct?
It is, yes.
Yeah. Okay, and I just want to make sure I was interpreting it correctly. Thank you. Thanks for letting me jump in on some of your stuff. Are you more?
Maybe, I don't know.
Others?
I think I'm good.
I'm good right now.
Okay, I just have a couple then. And Clerk Cody got to some of the ones that I had questions on. Maybe we got them all. My take on the billboards is it's really not changing a whole lot, the overall scheme of what we had before, correct?
Right, our current ordinance does allow billboards.
But it's limited.
Very, very limited, yeah. And this one protects existing billboards and allows them even to be modernized in some cases. But it would not allow for any additional billboards.
New ones, right, yeah. We had limited it. That was part of what we did in the sign committee before, was limited outside of the corridor, US 127 corridor, because we can't regulate there. That's still the case, I'm assuming.
Well, this would actually not allow any additional billboards, but one of the benefits actually is, and this relates to state law, is that, for example, we're often seeing billboards now converted to the digital billboards, which are getting better and better at their functionality. In many cases, you can drive by and not realize it's a digital billboard if it has a slow change. But anyway, to do that, the along the state highways, in addition to whatever local ordinance there might be applies, they do have to get a state permit, and under the state laws that apply to those billboards. And in most cases, in order to digitize an existing billboard, you have to remove two other billboards. So that's the whole point in the state law, is to slowly eliminate billboards. So even in our case, where we might be allowing a billboard potentially to be turned into a digital sign, under the state law, they would have to remove some other billboards to be able to do that. So we'll benefit either way from having this provision, even though we're, like I said, we're providing strong protections for existing billboards.
Is that relatively new in the state law in the last, like, 8 years?
I don't know how long it's been there. It's been, I don't recall a time when that wasn't the case, so it's been there for a while.
Well, maybe that's where that came from, because when we did the sign ordinance originally, we ended up limiting the number of billboards in the community, and we ended up trading out 2 old style for a digital one. And I didn't know if, so that we didn't invent that then. The state was probably already allowing that kind of trade.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's certainly since the 1960s, the state has had laws that have been trying to slowly reduce the number of billboards.
And the federal government too, right?
They have.
Yeah.
That's all I had. Everybody else was good?
Mm-hmm.
Clerk Cody?
The illumination one, I can't find it. So those signs are like limited per like wattage or whatever, right? They're the bright ones? Like, so it's,
The digital signs?
yes.
Yeah, they're required, both in our current ordinance and the proposed one, to have nighttime settings, either photocell or timer. And the industry actually does that now too. I mean, it's not just our requirement, but
Okay.
across the industry, it's best practice to do that.
It says right in there.
Yeah, I couldn't remember, so I figured I'd just ask while I was
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The reason that's not in my notes is I read through that, just the first read through it, and then I went through and took notes. The first read, I saw something, I don't think it was lumens, but maybe it was saturation or some other measure of the light on the sign.
That is something that's new in this proposed ordinance. That's, if you take a look, the visual is probably the best. If you take a look at the illustrations, page 47, right in the middle there, you see an Eat at Joe's sign, ground sign. And this proposed ordinance is going to require for internally illuminated signs is the idea of having a highly saturated background. Often with internally illuminated signs, you'll see they'll have a white background and dark lettering. And so at night, there's a lot of glare from those signs. And so what our ordinance says is basically to reverse that. At least 50% of the sign needs to be dark-hued, highly saturated colors. And the idea is to reduce the glare from that sign. So that's where that language was proposed. And that's new to the ordinance.
So there's not some kind of meter or anything, that's more of a judgment call, or, I know when we looked at lumens originally with the illuminated signs, they were new digital signs. And we were looking at the actual lumens they were kicking out, and we thought, well, the township, to enforce this, is gonna have to get a light meter to measure that. That's not, I guess, how do you enforce that?
Well, we do also have an exterior lighting ordinance, and that would apply to this, to the digital signs. And it does have a standard for maximum foot candles of illumination. But really, that's the benefit of this
Right.
color value and saturation business, is that we can, in most cases, we don't need to go to
Right.
that, because we simply regulate it through having to deal with it in the design, so
Right.
it's not a glare issue.
It's very helpful.
I do like that addition.
So, I have one question then to follow up with that. So over there on M20 and Lincoln, there's an LED sign. A lot of times you see a lot of white in their sign, and you can see it for a mile away. So does that mean they're gonna have to curb that?
They would have to make a change to eliminate those, basically reduce the white background. In those,
Yeah.
But that's essentially changing the ads to be more saturated in color.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because I know when I did billboards for my business, they didn't tell me any of that. They just said, you can do whatever you want, just send me the digital file and boom, so.
That's generally how they work. They don't care what's on the sign, they just care that they have the customers. And
The money.
typically, I will say this, that I've used this provision in other ordinances in my consulting career before coming here, and it found generally the folks are amenable to making the shift. The digital shift is very easy to make. And as new signs come in, the contractors understand, and so it's an easy adjustment. And frankly, it results in more legible signage. When you have bright lettering, bright symbols, and a darker background, those symbols pop. You can see much more legible.
And you can see the deer too. Which is nice.
Yeah, it's almost that season. Are we all good then? So we have a motion on the floor to conduct the first reading. Everybody's clear on that motion?
Good.
Yes.
Just as a clarifying question, as I heard the discussion, I believe the only change that we would be making is to add a pylon sign definition to the definitions section?
Yeah,
Or did I
Yeah.
catch that wrong?
Yeah, yes.
That's all I heard too.
that's what I had. Yep.
A lot more were, I think, questions about
Questions, yeah.
how it
Yeah,
operates. and
that's the only
Yeah.
one I noted as a change. I just want to make sure I didn't miss any.
Yeah, thank you for noting that. This is a resolution, so would you be willing to do a roll call? Before you do, for the record, we got the, I believe it was trustee Bills made the motion and trustee Smith seconded it. Okay.
Supervisor Melky,
Yes.
Treasurer Rice,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Trustee Bills.
Yes.
Trustee Brown,
Yes.
Trustee Thering,
Yes.
Clerk Cody, yes.
Resolution passes unanimously. That moves us to our second business item, 11B. Approve a participation agreement with the EDA Board for fiscal year 2025, funding to support completion of the East Pickard Road and South Somerton Road water main loop as part of the State Drinking Water State Revolving Fund ARPA Grant Division B Water Main Transmission and Extensions Report.
You got that?
We've all seen this before us. I'll just make one comment, if I may. When this was before the EDA at the last meeting, as our director mentioned, this has been on the agenda, their agenda or budget for some time to get it done. And the fact that they were asked to help kick in $500,000, they were thrilled at, because that's half or less than half they were thinking they might have to spend. So they were very grateful for staff and Board of Trustees encouraging that grant that is helping us in a lot of ways. So, Mr. Stuhldreher, would you like to introduce this? I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Right. I just, how about I do it this way? Since we have had a lot of discussion about it, first with the contract approval a meeting or two ago, and then earlier in the presentation by Mr. Nanny. If anyone has any questions on this, I'll be happy to answer them.
I'm good.
Good. I'll make a motion if we're all
Oh.
good.
We're good.
Make a motion to approve participation agreement with the EDA Board for the FY 2025 funding from the East DDA District Fund in the amount of $500,000 to support the completion of the East Pickard Road and South Somerton Road water main loop as part of the State Drinking Water State Revolving Fund ARPA Grant Division B Water Main Transmission and Extension Project, subject to the appropriation of funds in the FY 2025 East DDA Fund annual budget.
Support.
Motion by Brown, support by Bills. By the way, you read that much better than I did.
Yeah, I stumbled. We're getting through it.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a discussion on this?
No.
Yeah, it's been in front of us a bit now.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
good.
Is this a resolution?
They all have that. This is just
That's true.
participation agreement.
Okay. Would you be willing, well, everybody understands the motion, correct? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, moving on to item C, tax rate request form L4029 resolution that we have every year. Mr. Stuhldreher, you have this one if you would.
Thank you. This action is required by the General Property Tax Act. This is basically to formally request that specific millage rates be levied, certify that, and ultimately these documents are circulated to local treasurers, county equalization departments, local clerks, county clerks, and it's basically telling the treasurer, in our case, Treasurer Rice, that she is in good standing to levy these taxes that show up on the tax bill. It's called an L4029. It's on page 84 in your packet. There are no changes to the millage rates. It's for 2024, which we'd be collecting in December of 2024. 1 mil operating and 2.5 mils for the fire.
2 1/4.
2 1/4, I'm sorry. Yes, 2 1/4, thank you. And that's what's on the form. So if this is approved, then there's some signatures and then distribution, and then treasurer will be able to collect the taxes.
Like it.
I make a motion to approve the Charter Township of Union's 2024 tax rate request, Form 614 L4029, for the 2024 tax year, and to authorize the township clerk and supervisor to sign the form.
Support.
Motion by Rice, support by Brown. Discussion? Trustee Smith?
So the 2.25 fire mills, that will be sufficient to cover the additional 1-year contract with the city? Since we don't have a long-term contract, this will be enough again to cover next year's fire contract?
Yes,
Okay,
it will be.
okay,
And in addition to what we collect in the 2024 tax year, we have also been accumulating fund balance primarily for the use of a fire truck. And so right now, we're collecting more than we need for the contract
okay,
because we're also putting money away, saving for the truck.
okay.
And I do not anticipate anything other than the 3, I'd be surprised if it was 4% increase from the current fire contract.
Okay.
And if probably if it's say more than 3%, then it'll end up being 3% before it comes here. 'Cause I have not received the proposal yet.
Okay, thank you.
As I was going through this and I met with our manager on it, I just noted that our 1 mil operating is expires at the end of 27. And while that feels like just a few weeks away, I know it's 3 years away, but it just seems awful close.
Well, it just got approved, too.
I see your point. Yeah, but for the township, we need to, yeah, it's not very far away. And our fire, it's just 4 away. I don't know, all seems real close, I guess, I don't know. Anyways, any other discussion on this?
No.
Oh, roll call.
You want roll call?
Yeah.
Would you please do so then? Everybody understand the motion?
Yes.
Supervisor Monkey?
Yes.
Treasurer Rice?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Bills?
Yes.
Trustee Brown?
Yes.
Trustee Thering?
Yes.
Clerk Cody, yes.
Thank you, Clerk Cody. Motion passes unanimously by my count. That brings us to item 11D on the agenda, fiscal year 2024 budget amendment number 1. Mr. Stuhldreher?
Thank you, and there's a report in your agenda packet that begins on page 86, I believe. We are asking for board consideration to amend the general fund budget, the East DDA fund budget, the West DDA fund budget, the sewer fund budget, and the water fund budget. As it relates to the general fund, on the revenue side, this budget amendment would increase revenues by $266,000 and some change. We have some increases in state shared revenue, about $40,000. We're also recognizing the spring 2% grant award in this budget amendment of $125,000 that was used for the Lincoln Road south of Broomfield project. We're recognizing $20,000 of revenue from state reimbursement of election expenses that Clerk Cody compiled and submitted. And probably the largest one is $100,000 of increased interest revenue. And you'll see across all these funds, to the extent they earn any interest, it's going up because we've had increasing interest rates for the last couple years, few years, just now starting to see them go down. So the budget amendment adds $266,000 to revenue. On the expense side, it decreases expenditures by $443,000. Just to note, that this does include the budget amendment for the increase in the township clerk's pay that was approved by the board earlier this year. We're increasing the assessment budget. It's a net of $20,000. I'd informed you earlier that we brought in some temporary part-time help to assist the assessor in some field work. So that's part of this budget amendment. This also in the assessor's department includes some funding for appraisals to help us fund or defend MTTs. Most of the decrease in the general fund has to do with the Public Works Department in capital projects. You'll see these listed in your report. Save some money on the brine contract with the Road Commission. We did remove the Deerfield to Denison pathway spur that was in the originally approved budget. That's not going to get done this year. It's still on the table, but we've removed the $300,000 change from this year's budget. Same kind of thing. We're working diligently to get sidewalks on the north side of Pickard, up here behind me, between Lincoln and, I want to say, Ashland. And that is $345,000. Those are being moved to next year, so we're removing them out of the current year's budget. The net impact of the budget amendment to the general fund is to increase projected year-end fund balance by a little over $700,000. On the East DDA side, the net impact of the entire budget amendment is to increase projected year-end fund balance by a little over $1 million. Again, it's related to capital projects that we had budgeted in 2024 that we weren't able to get to, and we plan on having them in the 2025 budget. Sidewalks along Bud Street from Pickard up through Jameson Park. We got that engineering done, but the actual work is likely not to be done until next year at this point. And in the East DDA fund, the irrigation reconstruction project, looks like we will be able to let a contract this year for design, but then it won't be till next year that the EDA considers whether or not they even want to put it in, because it will be north of $500,000 to reinstall that irrigation system. It would be a lot of money. West EDA net expenditures, again, this is the same type of thing, reducing $250,000 in the West EDA. We had some money budgeted for the a sidewalk on Bradley from Pickard up north to the middle school. We're moving that till next year. I think the design work has started on that, but it may not be complete. And then we still have, of course, get bids out and whatnot. We also had $50,000 budgeted for design work for beautification along Remus Road down here, both east and west of Lincoln, and that project will have to get kicked out till the next year. The next one up is the sewer fund. The net impact of the changes in revenues and expenses on the sewer fund is to increase the projected year-end fund balance by $47,000. There's a little bit of detail on page 90. That's a several $1 million budget, so I consider that de minimis. On the water fund, the net impact of all the budget amendments, plus and minus revenues and expenditures, is to increase projected year-end fund balance by $604,000. This is primarily the result of recognizing and receiving reimbursement in the approximate amount of $550,000 for the drinking water revolving loan fund grant project. We also had interest earnings of increased budget of $70,000 in that fund. So I think that's it. There might be a little bit more detail in the memo. Also in your packet is line item detail of the changes if you're interested in that. But with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
I had just one. I think most of the adjustments make sense to me as far as what's happening on the ground in regards to maybe something not being able to get done because of easements this year. But there was one item I was curious about. Oh, yeah, and I should know this, but I don't off the top of my head. The Bradley Street sidewalk up to the middle school. What is that? Just a matter of not being able to get on it fast enough, or is there something else that is delaying that at this point?
Two easements, one from the owners of the merchandise outlet and one from the school district. And I had promises from the school district, but I have not gotten anything yet. And merchandise outlet, I think, largely has been hung up by the death in the family.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know what was behind that, so I thought I'd ask.
After
So-
we gave them that pass on the other thing, what was it, a year or so ago? Because they would have had, yeah.
We're not anticipating difficulty per se in obtaining it. It's mostly just getting some responses, turnaround time. But in both cases, correct me if I'm wrong, it's been verbally indicated that they will be granting those easements.
Thanks for that. Any other questions, or
I'll make the motion.
please do.
Make the motion to approve the fiscal year '24 budget amendment number 1 for the general fund, East DDA fund, West DDA fund, sewer fund, and water fund.
Support.
A motion by Smith, support by Thering. Any other discussion, questions?
All set.
Clerk Cody, only because it's budget stuff, I prefer
Yeah.
roll call.
Supervisor Monkey,
Aye, yes?
Treasurer Rice,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Trustee Bills,
Yes.
Trustee Brown,
Yes.
Trustee Thering,
Yes.
Clerk Cody, yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you for all the preparation and updating our budget. I know that's a lot of work, but it hopefully helps into the planning for next year's as well.
Yes, and that, I'll defer on that. Thank you to Finance Director Teal.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So that brings us to policy, item E, 11E, sorry, on the agenda, policy governance 2.1, or 2.10, actually, communication and support of the board. Our manager has presented the policy and given some justification and interpretation. Would you like to introduce this?
Sure, just briefly, policy 2.10 is titled Communication and Support to the Board. This is an annual review of the administration's compliance with this policy. Is to occur, the review in September of each year. At its highest level, the policy says the township manager shall not permit the board to be uninformed or unsupported in its work. There are 10 sub-policies. I'm not going to go over them all, but they all pretty much focus around the same thing. The board needs to be kept informed. They need to be, when they're considering actions such as you've done tonight, they need to have sufficient detail in front of them so that they can make informed decisions. The method we use is what we call the request for board action memo, and it has those different sections in it, and all that's designed to help the board fully understand what is being asked of the board to do. One of the pieces in the policy talks about the monitoring. There's an appendix to your governance policy, might be Appendix A, but it's a schedule of when all these different policies are to be reviewed and monitored. And so we use the second meeting of each month to review the policy that's up for that particular month. So in terms of data, I went through it. Monitoring reports were presented on time. The manager's monthly activity report, I recognize that I have been less than perfect in that one, and I've heard the comments, reviewed the last one of the September meetings, I think at the earlier September meeting. It was mentioned these are often late or they're not included in the packet, and I hear that, and that will get resolved. And because they're not, I mean, even tonight's agenda, it says under separate cover, and I put under separate cover too frequently.
If I may, real quick too, that we had discussed, because I see the confusion on your face, we had discussed the value of those at this board, and
Okay.
Yeah,
Because I just want to make sure nothing was misinterpreted, because at the last, when I was doing the evaluation, I talked about how I appreciated those reports.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make
No,
sure that there wasn't any.
That's,
You know,
that's
all
my
right.
point. I know the board does.
Oh,
I know
okay.
they find them
Okay.
informative,
Thank you.
but too often they're not
Oh, okay.
in the packet.
Okay.
And you see this parenthetical will be provided under separate cover, and that's
Okay.
not to the standard I'd like.
Okay.
You
Thank
should
you.
be getting them once a month in the agenda packet. I talked about the request for board action, how we use that. I think there's a fair amount. I don't think it's excessive, and I don't think I don't think I communicate items that I think are too small. Why bother the board? You're all busy. But fair amount of emails go out to the board when items that I think meet the threshold, fire in the area, water main break, boil water advisory, those kind of things. I try to, if it's during the business hours, I get an email out, I think, pretty quick. If it's after hours, you'll get a text. And then oftentimes the board will have questions during a board meeting, and I try my best to get responses back to the board the next day. So all in all, I feel that the administration is in compliance with this policy. be happy to answer any questions you have.
I agree as well.
Are there any feelings that we're not in compliance, or
No.
manager's not in compliance? Okay.
No, I mean, in fact, he got a 4.14 on that question as far as our assessment there a few weeks ago, so.
I think it's one of the things staff does the best,
Yeah.
to keep us informed, to tell you the truth,
So I do want to ask, and we don't have the form for us to evaluate this, but as always, as you read the policy that section of the policy that's in front of us, always be thinking about, is there something missing, something that's out of date, or something that's obsolete, or no longer meets our visions.
I think it's good.
I'm satisfied.
Me too.
Yes. Me too.
All right, without objection, we'll move on then.
Okay.
That brings us to item 11F, Policy Governance 4.0, Global Board Township Management Linkage. Mr. Stuhldreher?
And this is one in the policy sections that begin with 4. This is an opportunity to the Board of Trustees to review your own compliance with your own policies. This policy states that the board's primary connection to the operational organizations, its achievements and conduct will be through a chief executive officer titled Township Manager. However, because of the nature of the township governments and its election of department heads and the titles of supervisor, clerk, and treasurer, policies of the board shall reflect the term township management team, which I think occurs throughout the document. And it goes on to say that in the event that there is no, if you have not appointed a township manager, then the operational responsibilities will flow to the township supervisor by statute. So this is your opportunity to review your compliance.
All right, I'm assuming everybody read it. It's a pretty short policy. Do you feel we are, let me ask, does anyone feel we're not in compliance?
No.
You think there's anything we need to do to improve on this?
No.
Last question, anything the board needs to learn or discuss or live more in compliance? It's a pretty simple one. The only thing I noted on this, and I always like asking this, and this, that language one, right? Sorry, clerk.
I don't mean to, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Just, in the last sentence is this, in the event no person is designated manager, then it falls by statute, state statute under the supervisor. And I think we've encouraged, our manager has supported and encouraged that some of that cross-training so that in the event something were to happen to the manager, whether it be vacation or who knows what else, we have people that are ready to step in as acting township managers. And I didn't know if it'd be worth qualifying that in here, because I think the intent of it is, at least I want to make sure my interpretation is correct. My intent in when I read this, or interpretation, is that if something were to happen to our existing manager, that the acting township manager takes that role and it doesn't fall on the supervisor.
Well, the way I look at it is, it would fall to you and the board to appoint another one. Isn't that true? Or hire?
Well, I think that there is a policy in this document that says the township manager, paraphrasing, will not operate with at least 2 persons named as successors. And it, so the policy, those individuals or position titles have been named, so that's check that policy. But it doesn't discuss, because I wouldn't be around, how those individuals are appointed. So I think, my interpretation is, with regard to the policy you're looking at tonight, is if the board did not designate one of those positions that are in the policy where I have to name a couple people, and you have to choose one, And if you decide not to choose any of those, you still have to do something. And there would go to the supervisor if you didn't come up with a third name or something.
So I wanted to lift that up. Are you all good with that in the event something were to happen? Okay.
I think it's fine the way it is, because although very unlikely, what if the manager and the people that have been kind of designated cross-training, for whatever reason, somebody backed down, somebody left at the same time, somebody has to, yeah.
Okay, good. I just
And we could all be
that.
traveling together.
100%.
Those snowmobiles.
Hey,
Large corporations and other entities don't allow key executives to travel together for that very reason.
but all the work you can get done while traveling. Are we all good on that then?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so moving on.
Thinking bourbon on the rocks. No, I'm just kidding.
That brings us to 11G on our agenda. This is our third and final policy governance of the evening, 4.1, unity of control. And this is really on the board again. Did you have something you would like to say on this? I'm just saying, you don't need to,
But I will. Thank
Okay.
you for giving the opportunity. This is one of the, I think, from the administration's perspective, one of the key policies in the document, 4.1. This allows us to implement your policies without worrying too much, if at all, about you individually getting down into the weeds or getting into the space. And it's by design. It's one of the foundational principles of policy governance. In, I think, one of the policies that was just reviewed tonight, there's a statement that says if I observe violations of your policies, that I need to bring those to your attention. And as it relates to this one, I'm very happy with how the policy-making board, the Board of Trustees, and the administration interact. I think there's a good balance there. I understand the needs of individual trustees, and yet there's also a need of the group, the collective Board of Trustees, and so I try to keep those reasonably balanced, and I'm not aware that I've ever even been requested by an individual trustee, by this board, to do anything in particular, and I certainly have never found a request to be of such magnitude and workload that I've had to deny it. So in the event you were going to ask me what I thought about your compliance with this, I just answered that.
well, I appreciate your comments. So to this board, you've read through this. Anybody believe we are not in compliance with this?
No.
No.
Yeah, and I would like to back up what our manager just said, and I get that same sense that we all understand boundaries and we play within those boundaries, and I think it's healthy.
Yes.
Anything to improve on with this?
Very clear cut. No.
Yeah, I mean, give the board and the
Yeah.
executive the props on this, right?
Yeah.
Just piggybacking a little bit on what the manager said, as I was thinking about this, it isn't unusual for one of the trustees to ask the manager a specific question. And it may be one-on-one or a single email. And what I often notice, because I have some of those questions, that the manager then will respond to that question, even if it was asked by an individual, he will respond and let the entire board know the answer. And I appreciate when that's done.
Yeah.
So we're good?
Yes.
Last new business item. This is a continuation of what we started at our last meeting. Just for the public, if you didn't see the last meeting, this board went through an evaluation process together. That evaluation then is consolidated so that we can evaluate our manager with a single voice rather than 7 separate voices. And so what we're about to go through now is the process of trying to speak as one in the evaluation of the manager. Is that a reasonable description?
Excellent.
And with that, is there anybody that really wants to run this part? So I don't have to speak all the time.
You do.
You do the
Such
supervisor.
a great job.
If I do, it's gonna be speed reading.
Okay. So everybody saw the report that I put together. I sent that out a couple days ago. And I tried to double check the math. It's possible I screwed up, but I don't think so. So I think I'm looking for input here. My thought process is we just walk through it from top to bottom. People can interject. I do happen to know that our manager did watch the last meeting, so, which I expected. Whenever he's not available here, he should be watching our meetings to find out what happened.
And it's just so entertaining.
Yeah. So with that, and the comments, oh, I see a typo in my comments.
Yes.
You are right now, huh? Let's begin with the numbers. Again, for the public, this goes through our policy governance manual and basically evaluates the manager on whether or not he and the organization are following the policies that this board has imposed. And so 1.1 isn't part of our global ends. Global ends you can think of them for goals that you're ever reaching for that you can never fully achieve, but you're continually striving for, vision almost. And the first global ends is 1.1, residents engage in a vibrant community life. This board gave our manager a score of 3.21. And again, for the public, 1 is unacceptable, 5 is excellent, and in the middle is meets expectations, and in this case, it's slightly above meets expectations. I did include standard deviation just so you have a feeling for how far apart the board was in the scoring or how closely they were. With that, anybody here have comments on that? Mr. Streeldryer? So we're evaluating essentially you on this. Do you have any feedback on this that you'd like to offer?
No, I'll wait till you're done.
Let us go through and then, perfect, okay. 1.2, all residents can thrive and achieve more than their basic needs. Exact same score of a 3.21. All residents, 1.3, all residents may enjoy a safe and healthy environment and resources that are essential for their well-being and quality of life. A little bit higher at 3.5. Residents can enjoy the natural resources and green space of the township, 3.71. If anybody wants to interject at any point, just grab my attention. 1.5, new and innovative commercial establishments and advanced manufacturing, distribution, engineering, and research facilities are drawn to Union Township through commerce-friendly economic development policies consistent with MEDC redevelopment-ready communities program best practices. That was a 2.93. So out of the global lens, that was probably the lowest score, but certainly not unsatisfactory. And then we get to executive limitations. Again, for the public, executive limitations have to do with the guardrails that we put on our manager so that he has to operate within the boundaries that we give him through policy. Within those boundaries, the manager has a lot of latitude. And so this next section, 2.0, is evaluating that. 2.0, township management shall not cause or allow any practice, activity, decision, or organizational circumstance which is either unlawful, imprudent, or in violation of commonly accepted public administration practice, and professional ethics. Fairly high score at 4.43. Treatment of consumers with 2.1. With respect to interactions with consumers or those applying to be consumers, township management shall not cause or allow conditions, procedures, or decisions that are unsafe, undignified, unclear, unprofessional, indirect, untimely, inaccurate, or unnecessarily intrusive. 3.43. Policy 2.2, treatment of staff. With respect to the treatment of paid and volunteer staff, township management may not cause or allow conditions which are unfair, undignified, disorganized, unclear, or violate collective bargaining agreements. 4.43. With respect to employment, compensation, and benefits to employees, consultants, contract workers, volunteers, and collective bargaining units, the township management shall not cause or allow jeopardy to fiscal integrity or public image. Solid 4.0. 2.4, financial planning and budgeting. Financial planning for any fiscal year or the remaining part of the fiscal year shall not deviate materially from board's ends priorities, risk financial jeopardy, or fail to be derived from a multi-year plan. Score of 4.43. Financial conditions and activities, 2.5. With respect to the actual ongoing financial conditions and activities, the township management shall not cause or allow the development of fiscal jeopardy or material deviation of actual expenditures from board priorities established in the ends policies, which is what we were grading on earlier. That was a 4.71, very high score. 2.6, asset protection. Township management shall not allow, and notice, again, the public, everything says shall not allow or shall not allow these conditions to exist. So the guardrails are built to say these are the things that can't happen. 2.6 I was on, right?
Mhm.
Township management shall not allow corporate assets to be unprotected, give my mouth a rest here. Inadequately maintained or unnecessarily risked. 4.57. I think that one had probably the highest deviation of all of them. 2.7, ends focus of grants and contracts. Township management may not enter into any grants and contract arrangements that fail to emphasize primarily the production of ends and secondarily the avoidance of unacceptable means. 3.86. 2.8, emergency township manager succession. We talked about that earlier. In order to protect the board from sudden loss of township manager services, the township manager shall not operate without a written plan identifying no fewer than 2 other named executives familiar with board and township manager issues and processes. 4.0. 2.9, collaboration with other entities. In order to maximize achievement of ends, the township manager shall not fail to explore strategic partnerships and intergovernmental cooperation and to optimize collaboration with other entities in the region where appropriate. 3.71, the township manager shall not permit, 2.210, township manager shall not permit the board to be uninformed or unsupported in its work. And we discussed that one tonight. 4.14. There is a list of questions. What does the manager do well? Could the manager improve upon? And general comments. All of those were submitted by each individual board of trustee members and collated together in separate cover. Is it worth reading through all these? I'm hoping we've all seen these.
Yeah.
I'm hoping you've had an opportunity to read those.
Yeah, we've all read them.
Thank you.
You're good.
We're good.
Any general comments before we ask for feedback from our manager?
Well, we can give them the average was 3.9.
Good point. Thank you, Trustee
Back
Bills.
page.
Yeah, overall average was 9.0 or?
Yeah, 3.9.
Outstanding.
Yeah, which is very high marks. Typically, the executive constraints, which was the 2.0 section, we typically, in the past, have scored that higher than the global ends for various reasons, which mostly, I think, are not at the fault of the manager, but that's just how we roll, I think.
Do we want to consider maybe in the future about doing away with the global lens portion of that, since that is just a thought for future discussion?
Yeah, we've had that before.
I don't want to do away with it. And
I
I'm not even
don't
gonna be
think
on
so
the
either.
board, so.
Yeah, I don't think so either, but
Okay.
we do struggle with it because the global lens, we also tend to want to evaluate ourselves as board
Yeah,
members.
it just,
Because if we're not supporting the manager to do those, either through budget or other things, it's kind of tough for him to do his job in that way.
Right.
I am gonna, since I'm on my stump right now, just highlight, I did, this particular board, these 7 members, with the exception of turnover in one over time, has gone through this evaluation process the last 4 years. And I decided, I was kind of curious how, if there were trends or consistencies or inconsistencies in the data. So I presented a spreadsheet that shows the scores through that. And what I was impressed by is the consistency with which all this data, in 4 years, this board has been pretty consistent in our evaluation,
I was surprised at that too.
Yeah.
which I think means our manager is likely pretty consistent.
Yes.
So I thought this was useful.
Yes. Great idea.
Yes.
I'm just looking for any, yes.
I just, is there any way that this information could be added to the meeting packet so that the public could see? And the reason why is one of my comments made to the planning commission was it last week? Yeah, we met last Tuesday. Is I said, I encourage them to go back and listen to it. I go, if you want to know how your board feels about your township manager and everything that follows, listen to that part. In fact, I had one person that I know watched it, texted me and just said they liked watching it and they were glad to hear that some of our comments applied to the planning commission, just in our general conversation. So
I would be supportive of that. In the near future, in fact, I think our next meeting will begin the process of looking at the contract for our manager.
Yep.
That would be a perfect opportunity to put that in the packet. I would be supportive of that. I would like
Yep.
the public to see it as well.
Yeah.
well, it is a true example of how your board feels.
You want to make a motion?
I think it's something to be proud of, to be honest with you. That's so let's
So, obviously, this scoring tool, are the comments, would we like to include those?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think
everything.
so too.
Yes.
Yeah.
The whole package would
Including-
be the-
Yes?
Yes.
everything.
Yes.
Okay, great. Can we make that happen? We don't need a motion for that, correct?
Right, I think what will happen, since it's an agenda item in tonight's packet, we might do 2 things. We might include it in the packet that exists tonight, and then I think I also heard you say that you might want it in your packet for next week as we talk about the 2025 employment contract.
I think that's great.
Yes.
Okay, yep, we'll do that.
Thank you.
Yeah. I appreciate the 4-year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was,
that's
I
that
mean,
was great.
that says a lot too.
Yeah, I
You
thought
know.
it did too. I didn't know what to expect of it. I did it out of curiosity. For clarity, 1.3, 1.5. 1.3 in our global lens, we combined a 1.3, 1.4 into just 1.3. And then the other scores shifted up. So we used to have 6 global lens at the high level.
I
So
still
I-
think at the end of the
I-
day, it's good. It's good.
Yeah, and I adjusted, I just wanted to make sure the language has changed slightly in some of our ends, but the concept hasn't though.
Right.
But for the better. So it's
Yeah.
not a. It's not a.
Right. It's just not perfect in the case of that top section, because the language changes.
No, but if you go back and you watch the discussion, I mean, I think that's
Yeah,
something. I encourage everybody to watch it.
I'm grateful to hear that. Anything else? Because I want to ask our manager his thoughts on, our thoughts on him. So I guess, yeah.
Well,
like-
thank you. Well, I just want to thank you for your comments and your support over the year and years plural. As I said before, I really enjoy working for Union Township. I enjoy working with this board. I will continue to do my best to serve the board and by extension the citizens of the township. 3.9, that's an exceeds expectation. I look at that and feel humbled and proud and and all of that. I do attribute a lot of my success here to the boards and Union Township more broadly, maybe because I've worked for a couple boards now, but that the vision that this township has, one with how you want to govern yourself, policy governance, and two, recognizing that you're trying to attain a vision that some people will consider it in this business, because the ends don't change a lot, and some boards will consider that to be not good. But if you think about it, the primary work of local government is fairly basic. It doesn't change a lot. It's public safety. It's appearance of the community. It's being transparent and honest and upfront with whoever you're dealing with. And it's just a great environment to work in. And it allows me then to, I think, thrive, and by extension, other staff in the organization. So thank you, and really appreciate your diligence, your thoughtfulness, the work you put into this annual event, but more importantly, what you do all year long. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just making sure the floor, if y'all, anybody has comment.
Well, you make it very easy, this time of year of getting out and talking to people, management and staff makes it very easy to talk to constituents and answer questions and feel proud to be a Union Township trustee and to work with the management and the staff, how great you guys really are. I think it works both ways, because I kind of read into what you were saying, is that what we do and the global ends helps you and makes you look good. I think it works both ways, from the manager and from the staff, for sure, because you guys really do make us look very, very good at it too. So thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
What trustee Brown said, Smith. We can't do that
Smitty.
anymore. Smitty, there.
You're gonna miss that when she's gone.
Yeah,
You're gonna miss that. I have a nickname,
I'm tired. I'm getting a little spunky.
Yeah,
Sorry.
let's move on.
All right. Anybody? Are we good to move on, or?
Yes.
Move on.
Okay. Thank you for your service too. Yeah, I think we're fortunate, and I get the sense, and I hope that you feel you're fortunate too. Okay, moving on to extended public comment. Extended public comment is restricted to 5 minutes regarding any issue. If you choose to address the public, please state your name and address for the record. And with that, we'll open up extended public comment at 8:53 p.m.
Frank Engler, 1798 West River Road. Just a comment real quick. I did, not as a commissioner, but as a conservation district director. Just wanted to give you an update real quick on the numbers. It always surprises me. We had a collection, there's just one collection, so we collected 1,000 pounds of pesticides and herbicides, 26,500 pounds of electronic waste, and 24,000 pounds of household hazardous waste. So,
Wow.
yeah. So right now we're scheduling. We got a schedule ahead, so we're planning on doing 2 for 2025. The costs of everything went up, but we're committing to 2. So we're a little short, but we're going to figure a way to get it out there. But we are committing to those, and as soon as I get those dates, I will give them to you. So I just wanted you to have those numbers. So
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Engler.
Thank you. Nobody remote?
Nobody's online, sorry.
Seeing no one else coming forward, we'll close extended public comment at 8:55 p.m. That brings us to item 13 on the agenda, manager's comments. Mr. Stuhldreher.
Thank you. Just a couple. Reminder that cleanup day, Union Township Cleanup Day is this Saturday from 8 until 11 at the Commission on Aging, electronic waste, solid waste, shred it, so personal papers will be a big shredding machine there, roll off for the metals and iron, that kind of thing, and then a couple garbage compactor trucks for everything else. Anybody that wants to come out and help, you're more than welcome. You'll get a t-shirt, maybe a pair of gloves, maybe a donut, cup of coffee. And so we're looking forward to that. And I do want to mention Tara when it comes to this, and maybe just as much Amy, but really I think it's first Tara, then Amy. They pull this thing off every year. They do the groundwork leading up to it. They get it organized. They get the vendors here. They get the location. And so I want to thank and compliment both of them, which leads me to my next comment. A few minutes ago, there was a review by the township of the manager, and I spoke to how much I appreciate the board, because that's who the discussion was with, how much the board means and how they make it easy for me to succeed. And so in my manager comments, I want to direct it now to the staff across the entire organization. Whatever success I have is a direct reflection of the work that all 23 full-time and another dozen part-time folks contribute, all the way to the volunteers of the various boards. But they do the work on the ground, and they do it well, and they do it with a lot of intention and meaning behind it. I'm closer with some folks proximity-wise to others, but I'll be up in front and I'll be listening to Amy or Tara explain to a taxpayer something or another, and I'm going, they'll spend 3 or 4 minutes on the phone with them, and walk them through the website and really hold their hand when needed. And you don't see that everywhere. So I just want to thank the staff for all they do during the year and what they've done to help me be successful. I'd also then like to mention that, and this is again, Commissioner Engler thanked me for allowing the use of this room for the last couple months, and that's easy. All I have to do is say, Tara, call Jake, take care of it. And that's what she does, and she gets all this stuff back there working, and it's Zoom meetings, with people from these 8 different counties that we're working with. And the last meeting I called her, and she was in a hotel in Detroit on a Friday morning after a concert, and because I couldn't figure out what to do with that. And she answered the phone, and it's, that's, you don't get that everywhere. It's really easy to not pick up the phone. And so, then I did also want to mention, and I think I have this right, the preliminary site plan that was approved for the MRF also included a waiver of the sidewalk requirement.
Correct.
And I don't know that you mentioned that, but I wanted to mention that specifically. That was asked for and granted under the new policy. Makes sense. I'm just letting you know that that was part of that approval as well. That concludes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to final board member comment. Trustee Brown.
I believe I'm all set tonight. I kind of I think I said what I needed to say earlier.
Trustee Bills?
Winter's coming.
Trustee Smith?
Just quickly with CMU, what they're trying to do with the health school, moving it to Saginaw, I want to shout out to Manager Stuhldreher for asking the tough questions at a meeting on that, and kind of trying to get some answers for what is going on. I think we as a community, all different parts of the community, need to start asking more questions and find out why and the impact for this area. I think it's going to be very important. So, and I want to just thank Manager Stuhldreher for starting that tough conversation.
Treasurer Rice?
I'm good tonight.
Clerk Cody?
I got kind of an off-the-wall thing here. I just wanted to say, when people are using those scooters, please be careful. Use, like, bike signals, whatever. Like, I was coming here, couldn't see anything because the light's coming at me, the sun. And there was 2 kids just going off the sidewalk into the road, off the sidewalk. I mean, just veering off and on. Just, I could barely see them. So it's like, just stay in one lane, be careful, use your signals, use it like a bike. I just wanted to say that.
Good safety moment.
Yeah.
Some of them don't even use a bike properly, but yeah.
I was saying, just be careful.
Trustee
No, I
Therian?
get that.
I have 2 comments. One, Supervisor Milky, thank you for sharing the information about a developer inquiring about information of our township. It was positive comments, and that's nice to hear, so thank you for letting us know. The second comment actually is for Manager Stuhldreher. It was a week or so ago, we got an email. You were just forwarding an email of some concerns about the Lincoln and 20 intersection where the turn lanes are offset. And I know this is really probably premature in a sense, but have you heard anything, any response to that?
I have not.
Okay. That is, I mean, I've felt that way and have heard many people talk about how dangerous that is. You just cannot see. You're taking a risk making a left-hand turn from either direction. More so, I think, going from the north facing the south, making that left-hand turn. So thank you for forwarding those concerns on, and I hopefully there's a safe solution to that. So.
I will follow up if I don't hear anything.
Yeah, it's early. I mean, I know, but I was just going to ask. So. Thanks.
Yep.
I only had one thing, but now I have 2 based on your comment. So I did send out an email to the board, the conversation I had. Just give you a little bit bigger picture. One, it was a number I didn't know, and it was from Claire, and I was like, this is odd. Normally, that's not one I would pick up, but it's 9 o'clock in the morning, and I felt like talking to someone, I guess. So I picked up. And it was a very interesting conversation. I appreciated his comments. I was not directly able to help him. During the conversation, I directed him. I'm saying, you'll need to talk to our zoning administrator. And I said, so I gave contact information. And while I'm having this conversation with him, our zoning administrator called him. And so he wasn't able to pick up with Peter at the time. So my speculation from that was he called there first. Peter was probably on the phone. Called him back 10 minutes later, but now he's on the phone with me. I did try to reach out to her manager that day. We weren't able to connect, but that's when I sent out the email. And then I did have a conversation the following Saturday. This was on a Friday, Saturday morning. You and I are both having coffee at the lake. And I was happy to hear, correct me if I get anything wrong, happy to hear that what you had heard from staff was essentially a lot of the same story that I had shared with you.
Yes.
And so we had an opportunity to repeat some of that. I do not know where that went. I did ask the gentleman that to keep me in the loop on how things go for him. Would appreciate feedback. So, yeah, it was a great phone call. Last but not least, I've watched a lot of school board meetings, and I'm intimidated that you're here. For the record, Mr. Odekirk has been the longtime chair of the school board. And so, yeah, having watched those, you run a great meeting, and having you here was certainly, intimidating.
Don't be. It was a great evening.
Well, I'm glad you joined us.
Saying it was going to be long. I didn't think it was that bad. So
You didn't fall asleep either, did you? All right, with that, I think our business is done.
Motion to adjourn.
Support.
Motion by Smith, support by Brown. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned at 9:05 PM.